So, Rabbi, we're going to talk about something, one of the most amazing narratives of the Torah today, right? Which is the golden calf, the making of the golden calf, the Chet Egel, and also the Erev Rav, right? The mixed multitude. And we're going to see, right, that these two are intertwined very, very strongly, these two things. We're going to understand, right, hopefully very, very deep about these things, because really the truth is that this narrative is a very deep narrative. It requires lots of investigation and thought. So just to start out, right, with the basic facts, right? So what are we talking about? We're talking about, last week we talked about 10 Commandments, right? We didn't do such a bad job, We could have done better, but we did the best we could. We had limited time. But, Jimmy always helps us with these things. To make sure we're on the right number, we're on the right place. So I want to tell you right now, once the 10 Commandments were given, that's not the end of the show. This was just the introduction, This was just like the beginning. Right, yeah, the beginning of the whole show, We got the main course. This is the appetizer. The main course is still yet to come. You know what I mean? What is the main course? The main course is to receive the whole Torah in its entirety, which is a much bigger body than 10 Commandments. So how did that happen? How did that transpire? So what happened was that once the 10 Commandments were stated, as we said, right, what happened was that Moshe Rabbeinu went up there to the mountain, and he went up there by himself. Little by little, all the other disciples had to fall off, the elders, the Aaron, right? Yeshua had to stay. They all had to stay respective to their level, spiritual level. They had to stay a little bit lower than Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu went all the way up there, high, and he went inside. Right, there was like a cloud over there, something like fire. Like it was something unbelievable. Something very fiery cloud going on there, black, all kinds of stuff. So he had to go in there, and this was quite a dangerous trek, because you don't know what's going to be going on there. A person could die from this kind of thing, because we're talking about a very dangerous place where there's a lot of spiritual fire going on, physical, fire going on. So he went to a dangerous place, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, come, you're the only one who's going to come up here. So nobody else will come up.
Basically, he was safe there.
Right, HaKadosh Baruch Hu was guarding him. Why? Because the truth is, right, the Chazal say that once he got in there, what happened was that he wasn't eating and drinking over there for 40 days. Yeah. No breakfast, no lunch, no dinner, no nothing. He became totally spiritual. He was transformed into like an angel, basically, a totally spiritual being. They say, by the way, that even before that, Moshe Rabbeinu was very, very, very spiritual being. What does that mean? They say that below the belt, below the waist, he was like a human. Above the waist, he was like an angel, totally spiritual. He was something, you can't really imagine what he was. I mean, the truth is, right? He was something beyond the imagination. So Moshe Rabbeinu was, as it is, right, it was a very spiritual person. But then once he got up there, he had to totally become spiritual, right, to leave behind his physical self. This is something, transformation, which is in itself something very amazing. So what happened was that once he got up there, he was immediately attacked. That's what they say, the Chazal, right? Who attacked him? The angels. The ministering angels attacked him, right? Why is that? Because they were jealous of Moshe Rabbeinu. They said, wow, who is this guy, flesh and blood, coming up here, trying to tread into our waters over here, right? To be in our domain, together with the mighty angels, the fiery angels. Let's tear him apart, kill him. Let's make a mincemeat out of the guy, make a soup out of him. That's what we should do with him. So in order to be guarded from this, Kadosh Baruch Hu had to put his hand around him, right, to guard him, because otherwise, it's not a physical hand, right? Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't have a hand, but when we say these things, we're talking about allegory, right? So what we're saying is that Kadosh Baruch Hu had to guard him, actively guard him, because the angels wanted to harm him and destroy him.
But angels knew that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moses to come.
Right, so but nevertheless, their nature is, right, their nature was to be jealous of Moshe Rabbeinu. What was the jealousy, by the way? The jealousy is like this, right? That the angels say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this manner. They say in the following manner. Really, the Torah is for us, the angels. Why? Because we're totally spiritual beings. We don't have the physical, necessities and all kinds of qualities. So we don't sin. We don't, have this inclination, evil inclination. We don't have all these issues. So therefore, since we're totally spiritual, we're really adept. That's our nature to really learn the Torah to its depth, to its actual, to its actual real meaning, the real depths of the Torah, the secrets of the Torah. We're the ones. So coming here with flesh and blood and trying to bring the Torah down to the earth, wow, this is something like, this is sacrosanct, whatever, It's just like this is like we call this in in Hebrew sharulia, something like which is like something very 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 strange. So because of that, Moshe Rabbeinu had to be protected by Hashem, because otherwise they would have destroyed him. So what happened was that he tried to now convince the angels, Hakadosh Baruch Hu, regarding this whole thing, right? Meaning what? That don't try to attack them so much. So he told Moshe Rabbeinu, you know what? I want you to answer their claims about this. You want to take the Torah down to the earth, and they're claiming that it should stay up in the heavens. Only they should have it, right? So he said, what's your claim? Can you say something? On your behalf. So he said, yeah. He says very simple. He says, you know what? Take a look at the Torah. Open up the scroll, right? Open it up. What is it talking about over there? Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Ishmael, Esav, all these things. We're talking about the characters, all these physical. It says, is this talking about angels over here? It's talking about people, right? So if you're going to tell me that it's only for angels, right? Why is it talking about physical things also, right? Put on tefillin, do this, do that. All these things are relevant to physical beings. All the mitzvot that we do. Who's going to do these mitzvot? The angels are going to do the mitzvot. They don't do mitzvot, the angels. The mitzvot are for us, these physical things. To eat matzah, right? To eat matzah on Pesach. It's coming up very soon, right? All these things are to build a sukkah. This is relevant for angels. So Moshe Rabbeinu said, you know what? He said, you see that this really, the Torah is also for us as well. What does that mean? That the simple interpretation of the Torah, the physical interpretation, is for human beings. So don't try to tell us, right, that it should only be up for the angels. Because what they learn, the angels, is like the inner part of the Torah, the secrets, the more, this is the inside, which is very esoteric, very spiritual. But when it comes to the outside of the Torah, the physical covering, that's very relevant to human beings. So this was the argument of Moshe Rabbeinu. You understand? They went up there. They tried to present this argument, so they shouldn't try to attack him and kill him all the time. So what happened was that now, right? Hakadosh Baruch Hu tells them, he says, "Okay, fine. You know what? I'm gonna start teaching you the Torah, right? One by one, right? Mitzvah by mitzvah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, until we get all 613 mitzvot." And also, right, the written Torah and the oral Torah, everything you're going to get, right? All the laws, all the Shulchan Aruch, all the Talmud, everything you're going to get on the silver platter over here, right? Going to be given to you. So, okay, right, but what happened was like this, right, that even though he gave him the whole Torah, but he couldn't give him all the details. You understand? Why is it he couldn't give him the details? What's the reason why? Because the Torah is too complicated to learn in 40 days. Who can learn the whole Torah in 40 days and nights? We have a whole lifetime and we barely learn like 10% of the Torah if we're lucky, right? We're not able to do that even in a whole lifetime. It takes several lifetimes to learn the whole Torah in its entirety. So therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu told him, he said, you know what, I'm not going to teach you all the details now of the Torah. That's too numerous to learn in 40 days. So what I'm going to teach you is just like the headlines, This mitzvah, that mitzvah, this mitzvah, more or less, right? The outlines and the headlines. That's what I'm going to teach you. I cannot teach you all the details. It's impossible to learn that in 40 days. You're going to have 40 years in the desert to learn all those things afterwards. So what happens is like this, right? So what happens is that Moshe Rabbeinu starts to listen to the mitzvot, right? Just the headlines, the outlines, right? And even that, he hears it, goes in this year, and comes out that year, right? Starts to forget all of them. Doesn't remember them. So he heard everything, all the outlines, all the headlines, but in the end, he's got nothing, to show for it. In the end, right? He wound up with zero knowledge, basically, right? Not much to show for it. So he tells HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he says, you know what? We went through the whole Torah. I've been here for 40 days. Very nice. But the bottom line is, I don't remember one thing that we learned. What do you expect me to remember? Everything? That was the question. So what happened was that Kadosh Baruch Hu answered him. You know what? He says, since you had the patience to be here for 40 days and to learn the Torah, even though you don't remember most of what I taught you, he says, I will now give you the memory as a gift. You understand? So he gave him like, some kind of a, put some kind of app in his head, some kind of a chip there, right? And this app helped him to remember everything. There was a memory app he put in his head. So now, all of a sudden, right, miraculously speaking, he remembers all the mitzvot now. Everything. Can you imagine? So far, so good, right? Everything is good. Everything is kosher. Everything is good. But the problem is, right, that it doesn't end up so rosy and peachy over here. What happens, right? Once Moshe Rabbeinu is towards the end of his stay over there, right? 40-day excursion over there in the heavens. So what happens is now, right, that Kadosh Baruch Hu tells him, he says, you know what? Let me tell you something. Unfortunately, I feel bad to tell you, but you better get down there very quickly because there's a big problem over there, right? Or in the camp, right? So he tells them, he says, okay, what's the problem? He says, your people, they've done a very grave sin. They've sinned gravely, right? So he says, you better get down there. You're going to have to do some, patchwork. There's some serious, right. Some serious rectification you're going to have to do down there. Because your people sin, right? So why did he tell him, by the way, your people sin? What's the reason why? He didn't tell my people. He said, your people. What's the reason why he said that? You know why? Because it was really his people. It wasn't Hashem's people. What does that mean? It was the Erev Rav, right? What was the Erev Rav? So we have to explain, right? In order to understand the Erev Rav, we have to explain what is the source of the Erev Rav, right? Where they come from. So what happens is like this, right? That Adam Arishon, the first man, he separated from his wife 130 days, 130 years. What happened was that at those times they separated from his wife because of the sin they did. And because of the spiritual filth that was put on Chava, his wife, from the snake, so therefore he felt that he had to separate from her. So what happens is that now, coming to him, 130 years, all kinds of demons and ghouls, and giving birth to all kinds of souls, right, coming from there. These souls are falling into the klipot, into the tumah. These souls are being damaged by all this 130 years that he's alone by himself. So therefore what happens is, right, that these souls fell into the klipot, they fell into the tumah, they fell into the impurity. They say, by the way, Hashem tells us, Kadosh Baruch Hu tells us, the Kabbalah, according to the Kabbalah, that the purpose of creation was these souls that fell into the tumah, that fell into the klipot, that fell into the impurity. What does that mean? That the whole purpose of the creation of the world is to remove these souls from there. Kadosh Baruch Hu created the world for this purpose. So what does that mean? That you may think, right, that the world has certain purposes, to go out and recreation and have a good time and this and that, watch TV, blah, 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 go to movies. No, Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't create the world for these things. He created only for one purpose, right? That these souls that fell into the klipot, that fell into the tumah, that fell into the impurity, to bring them back up and to rectify these souls, this is the epitome of creation. This is the purpose of creation. This is what it is. So, Rabbi, in order to understand better, right, what that means for us, practically speaking, is that the Chazal tell us, right, that we actually, the Jews, we come from those souls. We come from there, right? What does that mean? That the Jewish people are the purpose of creation. That's what the Torah teaches us, right? The whole purpose of the world is to rectify the Jewish people. Once the Jewish people are rectified, the whole world will be rectified as well. This will be a chain reaction to rectify the whole world, right? So how it works is like this, right? That first, HaKadosh Baruch Hu rectifies us, but in order to rectify the Jews, we have to understand one thing, right? That our souls, the Jewish souls, come from those souls that fell into the klipot, that fell into the tumah. That's where we come from, those souls. We are those souls. So what does that mean? In order to remove us from the impurity, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to go through a multi-stage process in order to do this, right? Excuse me, my friend. Excuse me. Is maybe this a different time you can do this? You're like totally breaking up the Torah here. Different time. Thank you. Thank you. So okay, he picked the wrong time. So now comes right and says, comes and says the Kabbalah, right? According to Kabbalah, the whole purpose of creation is to rectify these souls that fell into the Tumah, Adam Arishon. 130 years, the damage was done. In order to take them out, HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to do a multi-stage process of rectification. Bringing them into the world, rectifying them. Bringing them again, rectifying them. They die, they come back again, right? One after the other. So what happened was, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, these souls, he brought them first into time of the flood, right? Noach, right? Yes. So these souls were brought over there, and they were all sinners, basically, right? More or less. All of them sinners, except the family of Noach. So what happened was that the Jewish souls are from those people, are from those sinners. The Jews come from there. That's where they come from. Because the Jewish souls come from those souls that fell into the klipot, fell into the tumah. This is what happened. So what happened was that the first time they came to the world, they were sinners. And Noach was the leader of that generation. He was supposed to be the leader. What happened was that he was the reincarnation of Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was reincarnated from Noach. Right. Just the other way around, right? So what happened was that since Moshe Rabbeinu had to come from this soul of Noach, so what happened was that Noach, his main sin was what? His main problem was he didn't interject to try to save the generation from destruction. He didn't ask Hashem enough. Even though he warned them, by the way. He warned the generation, right, that if they didn't repent, there was going to be dire consequences for what they do. So he warned them.
Basically, he warned them, but he didn't pray to Hashem.
Right, he didn't intervene on their behalf, right, enough. That was the problem. This is what he failed to do, right? So what happened was that this is exactly what Moshe Rabbeinu had to fix up this time. During this situation. Right, exactly. He intervened in a very strong way. We're going to talk about that. But to understand this, what happens like this, right? That now, all these souls have to die. Because they're all sinners. Time of Noach. They come back again. Next time. When is the next chance?
When you're talking about
right?
with Noah?
Right, yes.
Oh, okay.
So now, right?
Angels came down.
Right after that, they come back again in a different generation. Right? Which is what? Dora Flaga, right? This is the generation that they built the tower of Babel. Right. These were the same souls. They came back again. The first time, they died for their sins. This time, they were dispersed. Right? They didn't all die. Right. They got dispersion. This was the rectification of their sin. So little by little, right, as HaKadosh Baruch Hu brings these souls back, he fixes them up more and more. The first time, right, they say, what was the big sins of the generation of Noach? Right? Theft, murder, the cardinal sins, idolatry. These are the cardinal sins.
The animals
right?
around on the boat.
Promiscuity. All these things, right? The cardinal sins. When they came back to a time of the Dora Flaga, so the generation of the tower, their sin was a little bit different, right? They were actually very united and very. They had a good structure together, as a community. Yeah. But the problem was that they were fighting against God. They wanted to fight against Hashem, to remove Hashem from the world. This was their sin at that time. Heresy, like a form of heresy, kind of thing, whatever. So basically, what happened was the Kadosh Baruch Hu dispersed them. This was a second try, right, to fix these souls. The third try was where? This was now, right, when they came back to Egypt, right? The Jews that were in Mitzrayim, that were slaves over there, this was the third time. Right?
And what is our souls? My souls.
We come from there, right? We come from these souls. All the Jews come from there. Understand? So what happens is like this, right? Now, Kadosh Baruch Hu brings them back in the time of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, and he fixes them up by what? By hard labor, right? Slavery. Because, labor has a tendency to purify a person. He's working very hard, so it kills his inclination for evil. Because he doesn't have time. He's too tired. He's too flabbergasted to think about evil things. Too busy with physical labor. So what happened was, right, that Hakadosh Baruch Hu, little by little, right, rectified these souls like this, and then they were ready to receive the Torah. After these years of slavery, once they get this rectification, they were able to receive the Torah.
How long were they in Israel? 220?
The whole time of slavery was 210 years.
210.
Right. So what happens is like this, right? Now, there's only one caveat over here, which has to be stated, right? Which is what? That even though these souls are being rectified little by little, what happens is, right, that Kadosh Baruch Hu, every time he brings back these souls, again to be rectified, what he does his surgery, he cuts out the bad part of the soul. Cuts out the bad part. So what happens is that this time, right, when you cut out these bad parts, when you brought the Jews to the world as the slaves in Egypt, so that bad part that was cut out was also reincarnated as people. So who were they? This was the Erev Rav. You understand? The Erev Rav. Who were these people? The Kadosh Baruch Hu brought them back in the same generation as the Egyptian Jews that were in Egypt. Same generation. I'm sorry?
What's an Erev?
Erev Rav will explain what that means, right? What that means is like this, right? That there was Goyim, there was Gentiles that were in Egypt, and when the Jews left, they converted to Judaism. This is the Erev Rav, right? Why did they convert? They didn't convert L'Shem Shemaim because they loved God, they loved the Torah. No, they converted because they saw the Jews were prominent and they were successful and they were making a lot of money. They were becoming rich and wealthy. So they didn't do it for L'Shem Shemaim for the right purpose. You understand? So the Erev Rav now sees the Jews and they convert because of the physical prowess of the Jews, not the spiritual qualities. So what happens is like this, right? That basically the Erev Rav wanted to cling to the Jews, and convert. The reason is because the truth is, right, that really this was one unit of souls. The good and the bad was one unit at one time. So as time went along, HaKadosh Baruch Hu separated the good from bad. Filter, like filtration. Multi-stage filter. Goes one stage, another stage, another stage. So what happens is, right, in the end, now the Erev Rav are on their own separate entity now. Right? They're not connected anymore physically with the Jews. But because they see the success of the Jews, they want to convert, right? This is what happened. So what happened was that since these Jews were not converted L'Shem Shemaim, for the sake of heaven, for the sake of the Torah, so therefore what happened was that they caused the Jews many, many problems throughout the history, throughout generations. Right? These souls that converted, they come back all the time. They get reincarnated also with the Jews as well. It's like one big package, They come back all together like one big jamat, one big community. There's the Erev Rav, there's the Jews, but they're all together in one community. That's the way it is always. The Erev Rav eventually will be separated. That's the way it's going to be, right? So it's going to be like this, right? Now comes the Erev Rav and they convert. But the problem is, right away, they have a yearning when they come to the desert, right? Moshe Rabbeinu now goes up for 40 days. So they have a yearning now to go back to Egypt. Why? Because they don't like the spiritual life that they're living over there in the desert, right? No physical fun, no sins, no promiscuity, right? All that fun stuff that they used to do in Mitzrayim, they can't do anymore. So they say, this is not good for us. This is not the way we want to live. So what they did was they saw the absence of Moshe Rabbeinu. 40 days he didn't come back. He was supposed to be away for 40 days. Right? Yeah, 40 days. Yeah, of course. So what happens like this, right? 40 days he didn't come back, but they knew that they were supposed to be like that. He told them that, so that's not a big deal. What happens like this, right? He told them, he said, "I'm going to come back during the 6th hour of the day, right? In other words, before noon, whatever." So they saw, right, that he wasn't coming back. He was a little bit late. In other words, they in their mind thought that he was a little bit late. He wasn't going to come back. So therefore, they told the Jews, the Erev Rav. They said to the Jews, this Moshe Rabbeinu, I don't think he's coming back. The guy probably died. He probably had a heart attack over there. Something happened to him. He probably got burned by that fire. Maybe the angels killed him. God knows what, right? So therefore they started to to put pressure on the Jews. They said, we have to make some kind of other plan, alternative plan over here, right? This guy's dead. He's not coming back. He was supposed to be back in the 6th hour, right? But the question is, right, like this, right? The beginning of the 6th hour, the end of the 6th hour, right? This is what they played on. They played on this hinge, right? Is the beginning of they thought well, they said once the beginning of the 6th hour he didn't come back. They said, oh, he's not coming back. That's it. It was just a matter of time. He was going to come back even momentarily, right? But they took advantage of this lapse in time a little bit, right, according to their idea. So what happened was that the Satan also brought now some kind of a video clip over here, right? What did he do? He brought a video clip showing the Jews. Can you imagine a big screen, whatever? That what Moshe Rabbeinu was dead. He died. They're showing his funeral. He was assassinated. He was assassination and whatever. Right, fake news. Exactly, it was fake news. That was the whole thing. Even then there was fake news. So what happened was that he showed them this video, and the Jews were like, "Oh my God, he died." They believed it. Just like they believed, today what they see on YouTube and CNN or whatever. They believe all these fake things. Same thing over there has happened. So what happened was, right, that the Jews started to believe this. They started to get, really nervous, and they said, "Wow, we better go back to what we were before. Serving idols. Go back to Plan B, the good old days. We used to do idolatry. It was fun. It was great. We had a great life. We did everything we wanted. What is all this business? What do we need it for anyway? Let's go back to what it was before." So the Erev Rav convinced them. They say, no, they came to Hur, right? Who was one of the leaders of the generation. They told Hur, they said, you better let us make an idol because we're gonna have to go back to the old ways. So Hur, tried to dissuade them. He tried to give them a third degree. Told them, how can you do this? Blah blah blah. All this blah blah blah. So what they did was they rose up and they killed him. Can you imagine? He was really killed, right? So he got caught up in this trap with the Erev Rav. The Erev Rav killed him. So what happened was now they killed Hur. So Aaron sees all this, right? All this big mess. So now they come to Aaron. They say, okay, you want to be like him? You want to go on his ways?
Went up with Moses.
Yeah, but he didn't go up all the way, right? So he probably came back down. You know what I mean? Yeah. So what happened was
He built the calf. He had the knowledge to make the calf.
right. So what happened was they came to Aaron. They told him. They said, okay, are you going to help us, or you're going to be next on line? What do you think is going to be with you?
You're going to do it.
Right. That's it. You got to do it. So they said, you know what? We want to make an idol. So can you help us to arrange this whole thing? Collect all the gold, collect all the materials that we need, and we'll put it together. So he said, you know what? He says, okay, fine. He says, I agree to it. He says, but I'm going to have to do it at my own pace. What does that mean? He says, I'm going to have to first build the altar, to offer up to this idol, right? And then once I build it, he says, I will then, right, we'll proceed to make the idol itself.
At that time, Aaron was a Kohen, or he was not? At that time, there were no Kohanim yet.
At that time, he wasn't officially yet the Kohen, right? It wasn't because they weren't really doing right exactly. They were that was a little bit later. When the Mishkan was built. The Mishkan was built after this episode.
Okay, that's when the Kohen.
But anyway, right, comes Aaron and tells him like this. But he was already singled out, but he wasn't functioning. He wasn't yet functioning in that role. You know what I mean? So what happened was that Aaron, now, right, why did he tell him to this way? The reason he told him was because he said, you know what, I'm going to do it slowly, on purpose. Take my time, brick by brick, make the altar very slowly. Right, try to delay as much as possible. He says, until then, probably Moshe Rabbeinu will come back anyway, so then he'll take over, right? They take over his post, as usual, right? Back to business as usual. So therefore, he tried to make it slowly. He did slowly, right? The problem was like this, right? That once he finished the altar, so he said, okay, you know what? He said, let's collect now all the gold from the people. They should all donate to the cause, whatever. So he tried to pull a trick, like, we're here also, right? To delay this whole thing, right? So what did he say? He's going to go to the women and tell them to donate their jewelry, gold, silver, so we should make this idol, right? Gold, basically. So right away the women refused, right? Because they said, our jewelry, you want to take that for idolatry, to serve idols? They said, no way, we're not going to continue. We have no portion in that. So what happened was, right? By the way, from here, this whole thing with the women, they earned a big merit over here by this, right? They refused to help with the idol, because all the men donated afterwards, right? They all donated. The women refused, and then all of a sudden the men came in and they all threw in their earrings and nose rings and all these things. They threw it in, necklaces, this and that, whatever, bracelets, blah blah blah. Everything just went straight into the fire. So the women got a big merit from this, right? They say this is the reason why the women were because they didn't want to serve the idol, so therefore they're going to be given a certain.
They didn't want to give up the jewelry.
Right, but also they were more righteous than the men in this regard. They didn't want to do idolatry, So therefore they say, right, that the women are the righteous women of Israel. They are the basis foundation of our people, because they're the ones that our whole life is built on. Our children are raised by them, and they're the ones who raise our children in purity. And what we see from here, right, that the women our women are very special. That they were better than the men in this regard. You understand? The men donated right away, but the women didn't want. So therefore, they say HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to reward them for this, right? What's going to be their reward? It says, right, that during the end of days, before Mashiach comes, they're going to be ruling. They're going to have a lot more power in the world because of this. The women, as a reward, sometimes they're going to be ruling over the men even. Why is that? Because of this merit that they didn't do Avodah Zarah. This is the reason why. The men have more of what to fix regarding this, right? But the women are more clean. Okay, whatever. So anyway, the point is, right, that the Zohar talks about this, by the way. Zohar Kadosh talks about this, how there's going to be like the women ruling over the men, all kinds of things, right? But we're talking about men who are not worthy, basically. Whatever. But anyway, the point is, right, that getting back to what we said, so the men donated right away. So Aaron said, you know what? Oh wow, these men are so eager. I didn't expect it to be so fast. So they donated like all of a sudden they had enough gold to do the job. So he said, you know what I'm going to do now? He says, I'm going to throw it into the cauldron, all this gold. They made a big cauldron over there, whatever. So he says, by the time it's shaped and made, I'm going to do it very slowly. Again, I'm going to slow them down. It's going to be very slow. For sure, Moshe Rabbeinu will come back, right? But by the time
hour was elapsed already.
I'm sorry.
The 6.
No, it wasn't. No. This was like a little bit before that. A little bit before. Right. Yes. So it happens like this, right? That this was during the 6th hour. This whole thing, right? This whole episode. So what happens is that Aaron says, you know what? I'm going to do it very slowly. It's going to be a long process. No problem. I know how to operate this whole thing. So what happened was, right, that he was thwarted though. How was he thwarted? He was thwarted by the fact, right, that they had over there some magicians over there. Sorcerers. These sorcerers know how to pull tricks in order to facilitate this whole process. So what happened was that they say, right, that there was 2 sons of Bilam over there, like Bilam and Rasha, and they were also sorcerers, because they were the heads of the Erev Rav, these people. They also converted to Judaism, these people. You understand? Can you imagine? Even Bilam's family converted to Judaism. That's what happened, right? So they say, right, one of them his name was Yonos, the other one was Yondros, whatever, something like this, all kinds of strange names like this. So what happens is like that these guys, they wrote one of the names of God on a parchment, right? They wrote something on the parchment, and they threw it into the cauldron as the gold was in there, and all of a sudden, right, it was instantly like made, right away, no delay, no building process, no sculpting, no shaping, no chiseling, no nothing, right? No license, right? Nothing, right? Nothing. It just came out right away. Can you imagine? So they were able to expedite this whole process very quickly. This is what happened. So now all of a sudden, right, Aaron sees that this calf is already made, ready made. They already started the process already, right? Worshiping the idol, making a party, idolatry, obscene, behavior, promiscuity, murder, killing each other, all kinds of stuff going on. This was it was a short while.
Oh, it went on for a short while?
It was a short while, right, this whole thing. They didn't get a chance to finish their thoughts, right, until Moshe Rabbeinu already came down. It was the party was in the middle, right? When he came down, they were still partying, right, at that time.
But why did it come out to be a calf, golden calf? Why not? Elephant.
Right, you know what they say, right? They say that because when they wrote that parchment, right? You know what it said over there? It said calf, right? What does it mean? That Moshe Rabbeinu had a parchment, right? It said over there, Ale Shor, come up calf. Shor means like a ox, right? So what happened was that Moshe Rabbeinu used that to bring up Yosef HaTzadik from the river, because he had to get his body right out of Egypt. So therefore, what he did was he brought up the put the parchment into the river, Nile River, and once that parchment went in, his coffin came up because it was stuck down
He
there.
was buried in the...
Right, it was in the Nile. Right, according to one opinion,
So, they know buried.
he was in a coffin over there,
Okay, so they-
placed over there. Right, they wanted to get blessing from from him. Right, this is the reason why they put him there. So it said over there, "Aleh shore," right? Come up shore, come up, right? So they use that same parchment. These guys, you understand, to bring up this the same formula. You understand? So this is the reason why calf came out, because this was shore. This was the whole idea, right? So what happened was, right, that they put also the parchment in the mouth of this calf, right? So what happened was it had the power to talk because of that, So you know what it was saying? It says, "I am the God that brought you out of Mitzrayim. I am the God, right, to took you out of Egypt." That's what it was saying. It was talking. Can you imagine? And people were watching this, they were saying, "Wow, this thing is real."
It doesn't make any
It was
sense.
sorcery.
After all the miracles that God performed
Right.
in front of their eyes, and all of this, and all the goodness and everything, how they still,
Yeah.
resisted God,
Yeah.
you know?
This is a great question. We're going to deal with this, by the way. I want to deal with this
I
question.
mean, I know it's human nature.
You're right. It is
to be
human nature.
Ungrateful and
It's true. It is human nature. But we have to explain why, right? What's the idea? The psychology of this whole thing, right? So just to go through the process, right? What happens is that right away they start to make this party, illicit, party over there going on, whatever. So what happens is that Moshe Rabbeinu comes down, right? And he was already warned by Hashem. Something is wrong. You better go down there, right? So now we understand, right? Why did he tell him it was your people? He didn't say it was my people, Kadosh Baruch Hu, right? Why did he tell him your people? Because it was the Erev Rav, the people who converted. Those are the ones who did this sin. They're the ones who made the calf. So what does that mean? He told them, he said, now you see, right? You converted these people without my permission. You didn't ask me. You did it on your own volition. So now you see the fruits of your labor, right? This is your fault. Your people. They're the ones who sinned, right? Even though the other ones were also like accomplices somewhat. They helped, they assisted. There was all kinds of things, But basically it was done by the Erev Rav. That's what really happened, right? So what happens is like this, right? Moshe Rabbeinu was coming down, and he meets Yoshua over there, waiting for him, right, on the bottom of the mountain, right? Yoshua was waiting there, his disciple. So Yoshua tells Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, I hear like a war going on down there. He says, it seems like there's a war. So Moshe Rabbeinu told him, no, he says, it's not a war. He says, no, it's more like a party, You have to listen to the screams. What they're screaming. It's not screams of war. It's screams of party. That's what it is, right? Right, exactly, whatever, all kinds of nonsense, monkey business, going on there, right? So that's what he tells him. It goes down there, right? So once he sees what they're doing, right? Totally in shock, right? So what does he do, right? He takes the tablets and he breaks them. Right? So why did he break the tablets? What's the reason why he did that?
They didn't deserve it because nobody else deserved it.
That's very interesting, right? So what he wanted to tell them is like this, right? This was it's actually kind of deep, this thing, but there's one idea like this, right? That the reason why he broke the tablets was because he wanted to tell Hashem this was like a defense to defend the Jews. What does that mean? That the covenant was broken, like in other words, there is no covenant anymore. So don't destroy them, because the covenant doesn't exist anymore. I broke the tablets. Even though it's a kind of like a weak argument, he tried, right, exactly, right, it was voided, right, exactly, that's what he tried to say, understand? This was, by the way, all these arguments were a little bit weak, but he tried all the tricks, that he could try to muster in order to save the Jews from destruction. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu told them, he said, they deserve destruction, the Jews. I'm going to destroy them. Exactly. I'm making another nation from you. So now, right, starts this whole negotiation between Moshe Rabbeinu and Hashem, right? And this is where Moshe Rabbeinu now, right, shows his flying colors over here, right? That in this time, unlike Noach, he's going to defend the Jewish people, until the end, to be like a real defense lawyer, to try to get them off the hook any way he can. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells them, first of all, he says, you know what? He says, I swore that I'm going to destroy them, So there's nothing you can do now. It's too late. So Hashem tells Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, says, leave me alone. He says, now my wrath is kindled. They're going to be destroyed. Leave me alone. Don't hold on to me. Don't try to convince me about anything. So Moshe Rabbeinu, right? He saw from here an illusion. What does that mean? That why did he tell him, right? Don't hold me. Like he wasn't holding Hashem, So he meant that as an illusion. You know what? Try to pray for them. You know what I mean? In other words, I'm telling you, in a sarcastic way. Leave me alone. Don't hold me. But what he means to say is really like you should try to save them. Try to right, exactly, to defend them. So now, right, comes Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, Hashem, he says, what do you really want to do? He says, tell me what's your intention. So Hashem tells him, he says, you know what, I'm going to destroy all of them, and then I'll make the nation from you. This way I won't be breaking my promise. Why? Because I told them there's going to be a great nation coming out of Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. So you're from them, so there's no problem. We can build a nation from you, from scratch. So Moshe Rabbeinu tells him, he says, wait a second. He says, I don't understand. You're telling me you want to build a nation from me. He says, but I'm not better than 3 fathers. I'm only one. If the merit of the fathers couldn't save them, he says 3 fathers whose merit is greater than mine. How can merit of me save them? So he says, I'm not going to be any better than them. Same thing is going to happen to my descendants, like it happened to their descendants. So he says, what is it going to help you to do this? That's the one thing he told them, right? Try to defend them like this. You know what I mean? Another thing was like this, right? He told them also like this. He said, listen, he tells Hashem. He says, you said you vowed, right, to destroy them. So, but didn't you say in the Torah there's a way to annul the vows also? It says in the Torah that if a person made a vow, you're allowed to swear. Sometimes it's not good to swear. No, what we talked about last week was swearing in vain. Things like this. But this was not in vain. So he told Hashem. He says, you know what? Didn't you teach in the Torah that if a person makes a vow, he's not to annul the vow as well? So he says, I'll be the one to annul the vow for you. I'll annul your vow. Can you imagine? He tells God, I'm going to annul your vow. So Hashem accepted this, you understand? He said, oh, you want to annul my vow? So he came to him, He says, okay, you be the rabbi, you be the judge. So I'm coming to you. So he tells him, right? Say, okay, so I want to destroy them. Can you annul the? So he annulled the vow for Hashem. Can you imagine? Right? He did this trick also. You understand? So he tried every trick in the book. There was also another thing. He came to Hashem and said like this. He tried to defend the Jewish people. He says, what's it going to help you to destroy them? He says, what are they going to say? The goyim. What are the goyim going to say? The goyim are going to say, the reason why he destroyed them, not because he's angry, because he couldn't defend them, he couldn't take them out, he couldn't bring them to the land of Israel. Okay, Adam Mitzrayim, he took them out, but he couldn't bring them to Israel. There's over there 31 kings, who are ready to defend the country. Not like Paro, he's only one king. So he says, one king he was able to overcome, but 31 kings, this is like what Farrakhan is going to say, people like this, these idiots, right? They're going to say like, how they distort everything. That's what they're going to say. People like this, He couldn't defend them. It was too much, 31 kings was too much for God. That's what they're going to say. He says, you want to make discredit your name like this? That you couldn't finish your job? You had to stop in the middle? He says, your name was going to be desecrated like that. That's what I told Hashem. So this was another defense.
So brainwashing God.
Yeah, okay, so comes now, right? Moshe Rabbeinu tells him also another thing. He says, you claim that they sinned. They said, but I'll tell you something. He says, let's look at the 10 Commandments. Open up. We did that last week, right? We had our book. We were reading, page by page, right? Verse by verse. So he says, let me show you something in the 10 Commandments. He says, they didn't transgress the 10 Commandments. Because you told them, right? I am the Lord your God. Don't have any other gods besides me. They didn't transgress that. So Hashem tells him, how is that? How do you get this brainstorm? Where do you get this from? So he tells him, he says, that it says in the singular language, right? I am your God. Maybe they thought you were only talking to me. You weren't talking to them. You used singular language. You didn't use plural language. You understand? In Hebrew, Anochi Adonai Elohecha, right? Elohechem, you would mean plural, right? I am your God, everybody's God. But Elohecha means only your God, singular. I'm David's God, but I'm not everybody else's God.
And you're telling me that God bought this?
Can you imagine? Because he wanted this. He wanted him to defend the people.
It's a very weak argument, but
right. All these arguments are very,
But he was bent on destroying the people.
He really wanted to save them. You understand? So right now,
He didn't want to
right?
start from
So
the
Moshe Rabbeinu tells us, what I want, he says, they never really got into they never got into an contract with you because you told them in a singular language. They didn't understand what you were talking about. Wow,
It's a good one.
good one, right?
Turning to a golden animal wasn't.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
So I
Can
tried
you
to
imagine
understand
again the Malachim Jews starting from Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, schlepping them to Mitzrayim, then taking them. It's easier.
So now, right, comes Moshe Rabbeinu and tells him another thing. He says, you know, says, I don't understand you. He says, God, you claim that they sinned. He says, it's your fault that they sinned. You know, you caused them to sin. You brought the sin upon them. So he says, Moshe, he says, what are you talking about? I caused them, I told them to sin? Well, I incited them to sin? So he says, yeah, it's your fault. So how is it my fault? So he tells him very simple. He says, it's like he gives him an example, right? Allegory. He says, there was a certain rich man, wealthy man, who had a son, right? And he wants his son to have a profession, So he buys him a business, like some kind of a store, factory, whatever. So he buys it and he gives it to him. He says, I want you to manage this factory to learn how to make a living. Okay, fine. So what happens is, right, but he gives them the factory, where? On 42nd Street, in the red light district over there, you know what I mean? And the red light district of Amsterdam, or in Bangkok, You send them to a place like this, right in the red light district, and you tell them, but don't go with the prostitutes over there. Don't go with the what? So why did you put him over there? He says, you're the one who caused him to sin, just like this father caused his son to sin by putting him in the red light district. Same thing you did. He says, what does that mean? Hashem asked him. He says, because you put them in Mitzrayim, the most idolatrous nation in the world, right? They're idol worshippers.
Moses was allowed to argue like this?
Yeah, this was his job, yeah. So he tells him, he says, you caused them to sin. Can you imagine? He talks face to face to God with God, like a friend. So he tells him, he says, you're the one who caused them. You put them in Mitzrayim. Everyone is an idolater over there. Everyone bows down to statues. If you wanted them not to serve idols, why did you put them in the red light district? The place is full of idols. The place is full of churches. So what, you expect them not to go to church? How do you expect them to not to do that? So he said, this is the reason why you caused it to them. You're the one who caused them to sin. That's what he tells them. Can you imagine? So then he tells them also another one, right? Another trick, right? Can you imagine all these tricks? So he tells them also, he says, what's the problem? He says, why are you so angry about this whole thing? They made a calf. They made an idol. He says, what's the problem? The idol will help you to do your job. You're God. There's another God besides you. The idol will help you to do your job. You'll bring the morning, the idol will bring the night, bring out the stars. You'll bring the sun up, and the idol will bring the stars. This is what he tells Hashem. Can you imagine such a thing as this? You'll share the role with the idol together. So Hashem tells to Moshe Rabbeinu, he says, what are you talking? You also believe in this stuff? He says, you also believe this nonsense? You also a believer? So he tells them, he says, no, but he says, there you go, right? He says, I don't believe that. You believe it? He says, if you don't believe it, why do you want to punish them? Why do you want to destroy them? What they did was nonsense. It's totally ludicrous. So he says, just like you admit that it's ludicrous, so you want to destroy them on something which is totally ludicrous. What? That idol is really like something? It has a life? It has reality? It's not reality. It's fake. So he tells him, he says, there you go, right? For all these reasons, you should try to get him off the hook. Can you imagine all these arguments? So, as we said, right, that Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem was angry at him. Why? Because of the Erev Rav. He said, you're the one who caused us all this by converting these people. So, as we said, right, that the Erev Rav, they're the ones who made the idol. And they say, by the way, the Chazal, that they cause the Jewish people to sin in every generation. They're the ones who take the Jewish people away from the ways of the Torah, from the ways of Judaism. They try to convince them, right, to make them into half-baked Jews. Be modern, be contemporary, be this. You don't have to be. You have to keep all the Torah. Bend some corners, round some corners. You got to be practical person. Person of the world. You got to be. That's what they try to tell the Jews in every generation. They say, by the way, The Gal Mavina, he brings from the Chazal in the Zohar Kadosh. He says, right, that there's 5 different types of Erev Rav in the world. And they come back in every generation, by the way. What happens is that they get reincarnated. Just like we get reincarnated, they also get reincarnated. They come back to Jewish parents. So what happens is, right, that the Erev Rav, they come back every generation, and it says in Vilna Gaon there's 5 of them, the 5 types, right, of Erev Rav. One is the ones that are very materialistic, right? Always going for money. Everything is money, 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 money. Dollars and cents, right? Savings, this, that, business, blah, blah, hedge funds. All they care about is money all in their life. They don't care about anything else. Okay, you have to make parnasah, it's true, but to make your whole life money, this is not the way of Judaism. You know what I mean? That there should be the main focus of life. The main focus of life should be Torah, should be wisdom, not money, right? So a person who's totally focused on money. This is Erev Rav. This is one type of Erev Rav. That's what the Galamina says, right? Second one is the ones that are focused on kavod. That means honor, right? That they should have honor in the community. People should say, "Oh, this guy, he donated to the synagogue," so they put a plaque, on their name. The synagogue has a plaque there, But they're not really righteous people. All they want is kavod. They want to have a good name, So they don't give to the synagogue because they want to help the rabbis. They want to help the community. No, the reason is because they want to have a good name. They want to have a good, they want to have that, that stature in the community, right? To become the president, the vice president, this, that, to have that, special, plaque, to have that special name, all those things, right? All dedications, all these kinds of things. This is a second type of Erev Rav. That they care more about kavod than they do about the Torah. Even though they're helping the Torah, they're not doing it for the right reasons. This is the second type, right? Third type is what? That the ones who go for lusts. Lust. What does that mean? All these things that we have. The nightclubs, these all kinds of things. Right? Women, right? This woman, that woman, blah blah blah. Every time switching around, right? Having a good time, right? Going into the marketplace, of the women and chasing women, right? All kinds of things, right? Physical lusts. Whatever it may be, right? Women and other things as well, right? All kinds of other things as well. We're not going to have to discuss the whole thing, right? So you got the idea. So there's the third type, right, which is going for the lust. This is the third type, right? So then we have the fourth type, right? The fourth type is the ones who they want to rule over the Torah people, the Torah scholars. How is that? They donate money into the community in order to rule over the Torah. They should be able to harm people, to cause them harm by ruling over them, to impoverish them, all kinds of things. How do they do that? They manipulate by donating money, and then once they get into the position of power, they start to make things, to manipulate, right, to be like puppets, make everybody do their puppet. There's also a different thing, right, which is also very bad. They say, right, the Gaon says the Gaon Mavina, the fifth type is the worst out of all of them, right? And this one is Amalek. You know what that means? In other words, all these Erev Rav, the mixed multitude, that came into the Jewish people, they all have souls of Goyim, whether it's Ishmael or Esav, right? That's what they have. But there is one Erev Rav, the fifth one, which is Amalek, the worst type of all. The total enemy of the Jewish people. Which is that? So says the Gaon Mavina, we're talking about the people who cause strife in the community, machloket. They cause people to fight all the time, Right, instigators, exactly, right. They instigate people with each other. This one starts fighting with this one, right? They tell this one, oh, this one said this about you. This one goes, right, lashon hara, rechilut, right, gossip, all kinds of things. They instigate people one against the other. Why? Because when there's no unity amongst the Jews, there's no Shekhinah. The divine presence doesn't rest upon us anymore. Right? So therefore they remove the divine presence from the Jewish people by causing strife for the Jewish people, by causing people to fight. So this is the worst out of all of them. This is Amalek, right? So what does that mean? That there's also Amalek inside the Jewish people as well. In other words, not only Amalek is outside. We talk about this, we talk about this nation and that nation, the Germans and the skinheads and all these kinds of things, right? And the Nazis and this and that. That's the outside Amalek. But the inside Amalek is what? We also have inside these people who make strife amongst the Jewish people. This is the Amalek, which is inside the Jewish people as well. So Amalek is outside, it's also inside, right? So the Erev Rav is a very problematic thing, right? So it explains the Gaon Mavina. the Zohar Kadosh, a very, very problematic thing. You know why? Because they cling to the Jewish people. They don't want to let go. This is the problem. They always want to be with us and spoil us and make our deeds worse, cause us to sin, destroy our culture, destroy our Jewish heritage. That's what they're trying to do in every generation. So this is exactly what they did. You understand? What they did was the Erev Rav in Egypt, where they came out of Egypt, they said to the Jews was like this, right? Forget about this Torah business. Here's your idol, here's your God, here's your calf. Be like everybody else. Be like all the other nations. Don't be a special. Don't try to be above everybody. Be like everybody else. Just like all the other nations are. Be like them. That's what the Erev Rav tries to tell the Jewish people. But the Jewish people are not supposed to be like that, right? They're supposed to be special. They're supposed to be the chosen people. So what they try to do is, right, to bring down the Jewish people into the regular mode, just like any other nation. That's what they try to do. Some people, by the way, they say that this is exactly what's going on in our generation as well. What does that mean? Today we have, right, these people who are, the original Zionists, right? That these Zionists, what they try to tell the Jewish people is like this, right? That, we're talking about the redemption and this and that, Mashiach, and I don't know what's Mashiach, I don't know what's redemption. Let's make a country now, right? Which is going to be just like every other country. Regular rules, regular laws, no Torah, not too much Torah, right? Minimal Torah. And mostly you'll be like any other goy, like any other nation. That's what the Zionists are trying to tell people, right? When they founded the country, they told the people it was like this, right? They said, we're going to be like all the other nations. We're not going to be any more like special like the Jews and this chosen people. We're not going to tell anybody that anymore. We're going to say, we're just like everybody else. So when you see, right, what they told the Jewish people was like this, right? Forget about redemption. Just let's make a regular country. Let's have an army. Let's have a regular country, regular system, regular system of judgment, not based on halakha, not based on Jewish law. Be like everybody else. So they say, right, that the Erev Rav is doing the same thing here in this generation as we saw in that generation. What is that? To try to bring the Jewish people, to remove them from being the special people of God. Be like everybody else. That's what they do. That's what we do. Same. There's no difference between us and you. We're all the same. That's what the Erev Rav tries to do. They try to remove the Torah from the Jewish people, to make them, to minimize the Torah and to maximize the laws of the Goyim amongst the Jewish people. That's what they try to do. To remove their culture, to remove their special status as the Jewish people, as the chosen people, as the holy people, as the nation of priests. They don't want that. And they say no. Just like the Erev Rav did in the desert, right? They told the Jewish people, they said, these are your gods. This is it. You don't need all this fancy stuff. Moshe Rabbeinu, this high priest, Aaron. Be like everybody else. So the Erev Rav tries to do that in every generation. You understand? They try to make the Jewish people like that, to remove them from the special status that they have, because they want, right? Their souls are not Jewish souls. These people, their souls are souls of Goyim. The Erev Rav. So therefore, it says, right, the Zohar Kadosh, that Moshe Rabbeinu, he has to come back before coming of Mashiach, right before, right? He has to come back and fight with the Erev Rav, because he's the one who brought them in. So Kadosh Baruch Hu is going to send him back, right, to say, you know what, you got a job. Your job is now to rectify the mistake you made, to convert these people. So you're going to have to now remove them from the Jewish people. It's very hard to remove them. Why? Because they cling very strong. They don't want to let go. So therefore, right, Moshe Rabbeinu has to devise a trick to remove the Erev Rav. This is his job when he comes back. He's going to be the final savior too, Moshe Rabbeinu, right? As they say. So he has to remove the Erev Rav. So they say, right, that...
So he persuaded God, basically.
Yeah, he persuaded God, but we're already past that, David. So
I know.
we're a little bit past that. But Moshe Rabbeinu, now God is persuading him, right? He's telling him, listen, you're going to have to come back and take care of the Erev Rav. Because you're the one who brought them into the Jewish people. They cause the Jewish people to sin every generation. So they say, right, that as we said, that the Erev Rav is the bad part of the souls of the Jews that were together in one unit, the good and the bad together. When at the time of the flood, in time of dispersion, at that time they were all together. Now it was separated. When the Torah was given, right, there was a separation made between Goyim and the Jews. Before that, there was no separation like that. Everybody was equal. All men are created equal. That's the way it was before, right? What does that mean? Whoever wants to learn Torah can learn Torah. Whoever wants to be righteous can be righteous. Nowadays, right, in this generation, after the Torah was given, there's the Jewish side, there's the side of the holiness, there's the other side which is the side of impurity. So therefore, right, what happens is that Hakadosh Baruch Hu now wants everything separate. There should be no more together like that. So therefore, the Erev Rav has to be removed. In order for Mashiach to come, they say, right, that the name of Hashem is not complete until the Erev Rav is removed. Because the Erev Rav prevents the presence of Hashem in this world. They don't allow the presence to be there until they're removed. Because they're sinners. They cause the Jewish people to sin. They introduce a foreign culture into our midst, which causes us to be misled, right? To be confused. This is what they do. So therefore, the job of Moshe Rabbeinu is to remove them and to deal with them, right, and put them in their place. What does that mean? It says in the Zohar Kadosh, how is he going to do it? He's going to basically remove the source of their success. What's the source of the success of the Erev Rav? Because they stood on Har Sinai, right? They converted to Judaism and they accepted the Torah, even though it wasn't done right, L'Shem Shamayim, for the sake of heaven. But nevertheless, they stood there and they accepted it.
But so did Jews.
Right. So that's why they cling to the Jews, because they accepted they were there together. You understand? So the source of their power is the sparks of holiness that they acquired when they accepted the Torah as well. You understand? So Moshe Rabbeinu has to remove that from them. That's his job. Right? They say, by the way, that Moshe Rabbeinu, just like the Erev Rav comes back in every generation, Moshe Rabbeinu also comes back. The leaders of the generation, the Jewish leaders of the generation, are Moshe Rabbeinu. All the great rabbis, all the great sages that we had, right? They're all sparks, reincarnations of Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe Rabbeinu is a continuing cycle. In every generation, he comes back and he has to lead the Jewish people and keep them away from the Erev Rav, the influence of the Erev Rav, that they shouldn't be able to influence them. And that's why, by the way, that the new laws had to be enacted in Jewish people. Fences had to be put around the existing laws. Why is that? Since the Erev Rav tried to harm us by taking us away from the Torah, so therefore safeguards had to be made in order to keep away the influence of the Erev Rav. And this is the reason why we had to make those safeguards, right? So in the end, B'ezrat Hashem, God willing, right, this problem will be solved. But you see what happened, right? That the Erev Rav, they were so cunning that they were able to pull this trick on the Jewish people. And by the way, in the end, right, what happened was that Moshe Rabbeinu came down. He took the gold of the calf, he ground it up, right? Made it into powder. That's what he did, right? Gold powder. That's what he did. So what did he do, right? Kadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu that the perpetrators of this sin have to be killed. So the question is, how do we know who sinned? We don't know. He wasn't there, So we have to devise a way to find out who are the perpetrators. So what did they do, right? They ground up that idol into dust, and they put it into a drink, into water, right? Gold water, right? And they made them drink that. So that was revealing to them, by them drinking it, that the ones who were guilty were being killed by that.
But everybody was guilty.
So the thing is like this, right? That, as we said, right, that the Jews actually didn't serve the idol. They didn't really do idolatry. Mamash, like really, really, really.
Yes,
They were just, right, exactly. It was like a supporting role there, And also, by the way, the biggest problem was the Jews, they didn't object. They let the Erev Rav do what they wanted, They didn't make a war with them. They didn't fight with them. They didn't confront them, yeah. And we see from there, by the way, that a person has to confront, When you see something which is totally going wrong in the community, somebody's, some bums, lowlifes are taking over and causing all kinds of sins. So what you have to do is, you have to confront them and to defeat them. Not just let them reign free and do what they want, right? Because that means that what? If you don't object, you're also an accomplice. You understand? This is the problem. They didn't object. This was the problem. So therefore, what happened was, right, that Moshe Rabbeinu made them drink. So all the ones who actually served the idol were dead, right? This is what happened. So once the cleansing was done, and the forgiveness was attained, right, from all these prayers that Moshe Rabbeinu said, right? So then HaKadosh Baruch Hu allowed them now to build a Mishkan, that His divine presence should dwell upon them. And by the way, so to answer David's question, by the way, we'll end up with this, right? David's question was a strong one. How did the Jewish people wind up doing this? How much time was elapsed between the giving of the Torah and the idol? 40 days. This was the whole thing. I mean, can you imagine 40 days after they received the Torah, they did idolatry. They went to church. What kind of thing is this? This was a question of David, right? So what's the answer? The answer is, Rabbi, that really actually it's very accepted. It's very expected. Why is it very expected? If you really think about it, right? Because as Moshe Rabbeinu said, the Jews were very involved in idolatry when they were in Egypt. They were sunk into that stuff. They were in a very bad culture over there. The culture was terrible over there. Idolatry was very pervasive over there.
It's not your fault, Mark.
So, thanks for the vindication. So, he vindicated you. Can you imagine? Okay. So that's good. Okay.
He was snorting like a
Good. Okay. Okay. So now, right, we have to understand. The truth is just the opposite, right? Because they came from such a bad influence, then they were used to living that way. You know what I mean? It's to be expected, actually. You know why? Because when a person goes to such a high level of kedusha, of holiness, the Yetzer Hara wants to bring him down right away. Wants to make him fall big time, because he can't stand the fact that he's becoming holy. So therefore, what he does is, he tells him, no, aren't you sick of that already? Let's try something else a little bit. The Yetzer Hara tries to bring somebody down when a person tries to go too high up. Very quickly.
Do you have a specific leader of this evil there?
Yeah, we said, right. It was the Erev Rav, right, who was basically the sons of Bilam, right? Yonos and Yondros, right?
Edward G. Robinson.
Right.
Okay. I don't know who that is. But...
You will do that.
That's the little guy from the movie.
Okay, I got you.
We don't want to follow you, Moses. We're free people. We'll make our own God.
We're going to go back to Egypt where we can eat and sleep and live.
He was
sounds
Jewish,
good. Okay.
that actor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
It was Erev Rav.
Cecil B. DeMille.
That's right.
Cecil B. DeMille.
Funny, you guys are funny.
Yes.
So the truth is, right, that I can tell you from experience, as a person who tries to, become spiritual, that once you try to go high, the Yetzer Hara will try to bring you down even more.
You told me you suffered a lot.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's really to be expected. The truth is, right, when a normal person, right, who's trying to serve God, there are highs and lows. That's the way it happens. Sometimes you go up, sometimes you go down. The thing is, you don't want to go down too much. You know what I mean?
Now, when you're going, they're not you specifically, but when this person is in this predicament and there are lows, during that low, why is he going low? Because he's doubting Hashem, or?
It's not really a matter of doubt so much. You know what it is? It's just basically can't handle the holiness. It's just too much. It's overwhelming. So he wants to go back, and regress a little bit to see, what was I doing yesterday? Let me go back to that. Let me try that again. You know what I mean? It's like it's a cycle. It goes back and forth, back and forth. But the problem was, right, that this one was very extreme. You know what I mean? This was a very extreme fall. All of a sudden, sudden extreme fall. But the truth is, as Moshe Rabbeinu told Hashem, he was right. It was expected. You know why it was expected? Because they came from an extremely bad place. The influence was very bad there. You know what I mean? So what do you expect from them? It's like, these American Jews. I'll give you an example, right? You understand, right? American Jews who come to Israel to live over there, What do they know? They know American culture, They talk about democracy, they talk about this,
Well,
Why?
it depends where they go.
You know what I mean?
If you go from New York straight to Tel Aviv, to the heart of Tel Aviv, where they're partying on Shabbat, you didn't really leave New York.
That's a different story. We'll talk about it some other time. But the point is like this, right? That a person who's coming from a influence that was pervasive in his place that he lived, so you expect him to revert back to that once in a while. It's to be expected. You know what I mean? At least temporarily, if not permanently, right? Permanently, that would be pretty bad, right? But temporarily, to have a reversion like that, to go back, to backtrack a little bit, this is to be expected, So what do you expect? The person tries to go from to the gutter, into the top of the World Trade Center.
Are you
You know what I mean? This is what's to be expected.
Are you saying that it's okay for us to come on Tuesday and Thursday, and on the weekend go to the Cat's Cafe in Brooklyn?
Well, it's better than the
It's not what it used to be.
before he was talking about the underground. It's like it's better. I guess it's better than that. But
Good ice cream place in Williamsburg.
so anyway, but next time I guess we'll talk about the Mishkan, B'ezrat Hashem, next week. For next Tuesday. Okay, God bless you. Thanks for coming.
The underground was for 60-year-old sinners. The Cat's Cafe is.
It's not what it used to be.
I know.